The follow-up to last Sunday's amazing Indianapolis 500 for the drivers and teams of the Verizon IndyCar Series are 2 races on the tricky 14-turn raceway at Belle Isle Park Road Course in Detroit. Add to the level of that difficulty the conditions you see before you. It's wet. It's been raining. It's supposed to stop. It's supposed to rain again. What a day we're in for here in Detroit. Alan Bestwick, Scott Goodyear, and Eddie Cheever. You see officials have moved up the start to get as much of the race in before the heaviest of the weather hits later. And the starting lineup coming across the top of your screen. Eddie and Scott, what's it like to race an open-wheel race car in the rain?
This is the polar opposite of what we left the Indianapolis 500, which was all about speed and fast corners. Here you have to wrestle a car that has 750 horsepower around these very narrow street circuit, and there's cement walls everywhere, and they've never driven, Scott, in the wet here.
We have not run here this weekend so far in the wet, Eddie, you are correct. And the thing about this is it's about survival. Visibility is very difficult with this wet racetrack. It changes each and every lap because the puddles will change. Drivers will think that they're getting secure with the turn, and then they'll go in there a little harder next time, Alan, and lo and behold, the car will slide out from underneath them.
Some business before the start. Our broadcast available in Spanish. If you're looking for that, activate the SAP button on your television, presented by ESPN Deportes. And enter at shophonda.com for a chance to start a Verizon IndyCar Series race in the Honda 2-seat IndyCar, driven by Mario Andretti. So, because of the weather conditions, series officials have taken what is scheduled to be a 70-lap race, and they've made it 70 laps or a timed 2-hour race, whichever comes first. Also, they've just added an extra pace lap, and they're going to make this a single file start instead of double wide. As soon as you cross the start line, you have a right-left combination and a long straightaway, and they want to get everybody through there and get the race properly started.
And the reason they're doing this, they want the drivers to see where the puddles out. They want where the puddles are. They want the drivers to understand how much grip is on the circuit, but it's going to be really hard.
So a quick look at those carrying onboard cameras for us in today's race here in Detroit. Connor Daly, subbing for James Hinchcliffe, has our Lucas Oil on board. We wish James the best in his continued recovery. Charlie Kimball has our Levemere Flex Touch on board, that, as you can see, the rain is getting the best of for the moment. Ryan Hunter-Ray, the Auto Nation, on board. And Tony Kanaan has the T-Data on board. Graham Rahal carrying the Steak and Shake camera. James Jakes has the MediaTek on board. Marco Andretti with the Mutual of Omaha camera. Simon Pagenaud, former winner here, with the Verizon on board. The Indy 500 winner, Juan Pablo Montoya, has a Firestone on board, and the pole position and the best looking of all of those cameras, Will Power, who has a Verizon on board starting in the #1 position.
And Eddie, you and I were talking about before we came on air, we both run here in the rain, and visibility, as you can see by those onboard cameras, is very difficult. The further you get towards the front, as Alan talked about, if you're the lead car, you don't have anybody throwing that water up, and so you can actually see where you are going. As you progressively get through the field, it becomes worse, and the start is the worst time of that.
The start is really tricky because if you're 5 or 6 places back, you will not see where you're going, so you have to trust that car that's ahead of you. If that car ahead of you is going in the wrong place, you're following them because you just cannot see. And right now, it looks misty. This is nothing compared to what it's going to be like when they get up to 150 miles an hour on the straightaway.
Which will be next time they come back around to the start line. The pressure on the strategists and the team engineers also huge today. We go to pit road. Here's Dr. Jerry Punch.
Just spoke with Juan Pablo Montoya, last week's Indy 500 winner, and he loves the fact that the weather becomes a factor. Why? Because when you ask people up and down pit road who is the best on a wet racetrack and in the rain, it may be Montoya. Remember the 6 years he spent driving Formula One. He had 7 wins in Formula One. Many of those races were in heavy, heavy downpours. A year ago when IndyCar ran at Barber and it began to rain heavily, it was Montoya who took off like a rocket. He wants the weather to get worse as the day progresses. Let's go to Rick.
Well, if there's one track where Helio Castroneves probably thinks he could get his championship hopes back on track, it would be this one. He's won here 3 times. He won his very first race here, but think about this. He has not won a race this year despite 2 poles, and his last victory came here last year, but think about that. He's got 2 chances here this weekend, and that means he could put his championship's hope back on track again. Alan?
All right, Rick, thanks. We'll hear from Jan Beekes shortly also as well as he tracks the strategy and the strategists down on the pit lane. So we're coming to the green here. Again, 70 laps or 2 hours, whichever comes first. Remember, at the start, it's a quick right-left combination, then a long, fast straightaway to a heavy braking area where we saw a turn 3, lap 1 crash in this first race of the doubleheader a year ago. What will it be in these elusive circumstances today here in the Motor City in the first of the duel in Detroit? Another one coming tomorrow here on ABC. For now, we watch the start as the pace car turns right and Will Power leads the field down to the green. Around Montoya, and Sebastian Bourdais picked up a spot in turn 1 also, sliding through Graham Rahal in that red 15.
This camera angle is exactly what he's seeing. Let's not forget that Sato has a lot of Formula One experience also.
And when we talked with his team this morning, he said they would be excited if they saw the wet. Sato on Castroneves for second down the backstretch.
Sato's looking, Scott, for that little bit of clear view, and he gets by him.
And plus he's on the inside for the next turn, which is at the end of the backstretch, turn number 7, so he knew where to place his car to take advantage of that.
And the drivers have absolutely no idea how much grip is on the circuit, so they're learning the circuit all over again.
This is so difficult. We've been here for a couple of days, so the drivers have been on the racetrack and they've been tuning their cars for the dry weather. So we see Castroneves have a little bit of a bobble. And then with this dry weather, the cars works in one particular way of handling and you get comfortable with that. But now in the wet, they'll change the setup, do some spring and shock absorber changes, and you hope that your team has made the right choice for what you need on this wet track.
Bourdais is all over Montoya, and he gets by him in one of the fastest corners and turning into turn 1. Slides all the way past his line and on the other side.
And pays for it just a little bit.
And change for the lead. Sato got by Will Power. Takuma Sato driving for AJ Foyt, the new leader.
Bourdais and Montoya are exchanging positions. They've done that for 2 corners in a row.
While we watch this, update on the new leader from Rick.
Yeah, Takuma Sato was one of those people severely hoping for rain this weekend. That's because even though he qualified 4th, I asked him, can you race in that position? Remember, he's driving one of the Hondas, which have not been as fast as the Chevys. And he was one of those people saying, I hope it rains. He knows he does well in the rain, and he was hoping that he would be able to pull that off. And it sounds like we're going to get a full course yellow.
We have a car off the track, spun around at the exit of turn number 2. That is Rodolfo Gonzalez in the 18 car for Dale Coyne Racing.
When I spoke with him this morning, he said, I'm just here. I want to get some experience. He doesn't have any experience really in the Indy cars. He tested with Schmidt and also Dale Coyne in the off-season. Just wanted to have an opportunity to run here. But to come to this racetrack, Eddie, even when it's dry, it's one of the hardest racetracks to come and get your IndyCar experience.
Yeah, then that's really not a good way to start your weekend, but we have to see in a replay what happened. Doesn't look like anything happened to his car. It seems very intact. There's no pieces missing.
Just looks like he's parallel parked, I think.
Watch the top of the screen here through some of the mist. Looks like he powered up coming off that corner. Around it went. Connor Daly's view.
There is a bump right there where he puts his foot on the gas, and when the dry, you've got grip. The car gets in the air and it lands, and he just didn't time that right.
So Gonzalez, the 29-year-old from Venezuela, in just his second IndyCar race, brings out the caution early in these really tricky conditions in Detroit. Belle Isle, in the middle of the Detroit River between downtown Detroit and Windsor, Ontario. A magnificent city park where the raceway at Belle Isle Park is hosting the Verizon IndyCar Series. Some early strategy played here That's Gonzalez with the check of the car from repairs. And we check with Jan Bikas.
And amazing, you heard Rick DeBrule talk about that Takuma Sato taking the lead in a Honda. Remember, that's Honda Power and also Honda Aerodynamics. And that's amazing because IndyCar has taken away some pieces from the Honda from the front wing. On the upper left, those are the pieces they ran at the beginning of the season. On the lower portion here of the screen, that's what they have to run this weekend, all the Honda runners. The reason? They felt with wheel-to-wheel contact, those pieces on the upper left, those were flying off and shearing off, causing a safety hazard. So what does that mean for Honda? Well, the upside is it's safer and less weight to flex the wings. The downside, you don't have as much downforce and pieces to use. And I can tell you, and you guys know upstairs, on a day like today at Belle Isle, you want all the downforce you can get. So an amazing run for Takuma Sato, considering this is all new.
You can see that Chevrolet has had the decided performance advantage through the opening portion of the Aero Kit era in the Verizon IndyCar Series, and we're here in Chevrolet's hometown, so a race of great importance to them, though their rival leading at the moment.
You can take all that and throw it to the garbage can right now because the track is wet. It's a great equalizer. It all falls back into the hands of the race driver.
Coming to the restart, with Sato leading, Power, Castroneves, Montoya, and Bourdais. An incident between Montoya and Bourdais will be subject to post-race review by IndyCar officials. A little back and forth going on between them as they race for position.
And what that politely means is that there could be a fine next week to both drivers.
And I think there might be something else because they're sitting next to each other still, Alan.
We will see. Pace car heads off. And here they come back up to speed. Coletti makes contact. Into the wall. That's Tony Kanaan, gets hit by Graham Rahal, and one other car involved. I believe that's James Jakes.
And that all started with one little bump.
See the front suspension on the right-hand side of Graham Rahal's Steak and Shake car is missing.
Somebody hit me, man.
And they say yellows breed yellow, so we have another full course yellow.
And the track is starting to get a drier line. I hate seeing Rahal out. This is the sort of day where I expected him to excel.
That started when someone made a dive bomb move to the inside of that right-hand turn one. There is James Jakes, his car stuffed under the tire barrier. I believe the car that made that move was the 4 car of Stefano Coletti. And the result in all the jam up is what you see here.
And it was just a little nudge, but the track being wet, the cars lose adhesion really quickly.
Tony Kanaan.
Now his mechanics are going to come into play as they try to change all that.
The 3 wide going into turn 1 is always difficult. Believe it's the 4 car of Stefano Coletti trying to get on the inside, does that, and when you end up hitting contact with another car, which is James Jakes, he then goes ahead and starts doing almost like a pinball movement, and everybody starts to get collected. Now we'll have to see if Jakes can get out of the tire barrier and get clear, but you see Graham Rahal there again with his suspension damaged. Just watch here on the outside. Oh, and Eddie, you know what that's like, sitting in the car when you're sideways like this. Here, let's go along with Graham. See the visibility very difficult. And Graham can't see, he's got really nowhere to go.
Graham could do
driving
nothing.
into Kanaan.
We're out.
This is James Jakes.
Inside.
There is the cause. The result is Graham Rahal standing with Dr. Jerry Punch now instead of in his race car.
Actually, we're walking down pit road. Graham, we tried to watch the replays. From your vantage point, what happened?
I think a lot of people just taking stupid chances. You know, early in the race, Newgarden dove underneath me, and, you know, I was letting him go, and unfortunately, I put me, you know, a car width off the inside, and Kanaan and Jakes crashed. And when Kanaan hit the tires, he flew out right in front of me. There's nowhere I could go. I mean, literally, there was no hope. I mean, unfortunately, that's just a little bit of bad luck.
What's the visibility like out there? You're talking about all the chances people are taking early on. It looks like it's hard to see.
It's impossible to see right now, and you know, that's why I'm saying you just got to be smart out there, be really, really cautious. I mean, you know, I was just playing this thing out as a 70-lap race or 2 hours, and lot of other guys I don't think are right now. And unfortunately, you can get caught up either way, and we did. But, you know, the Steak and Shake boys will regroup for tomorrow. I mean, we got another race, you know, tomorrow. It's just a shame. I mean, everybody knows how strong this team has been and the point streak we've been on. And, you know, here we are. It's definitely is. And actually, the car was really good in the rain. I was just being super cautious. So, I mean, unfortunately, it bit me.
Tough one early for Graham Rahal,
who has finished second, and fifth in the last 3 races, and is 5th in the Verizon IndyCar Series championship standings. But he swept up into this mess, into turn 1 on a restart that also collected Tony Kanaan and James Jakes, and it has us under the second full course caution in the duel in Detroit. Back live the raceway at Belle Isle Park outside of downtown Detroit under a full course caution for the second time today in the first of our 2 Duel in Detroit races. The second half of our double dip is tomorrow from here at Belle Isle. We're on ABC at 3:30 Eastern Time. Weather forecast for that one? Well, it's a little bit on the wet side as well, possibly. So tomorrow could be just as intriguing as today has been so far. By the way, one of my little weather apps that I use says light rain starting again in 35 minutes. Don't go away. We're not done with the drama here. Back live in Detroit. The first of the Duel in Detroit races is under caution for the second time. Takuma Sato is the second leader of the race. This yellow caused on a restart from the first yellow when they went 3 wide off at turn number 1. Stefano Coletti. Well, there are always 2 sides to every story. Here's his.
What happened there? You made the pass down the inside, and then I believe it was Jake turned in and spun right behind you. All good. It was a nice move. Thank you, boss.
Did he say good for the nice move?
I'm not sure the other players in the game is going to see it that way.
I mean, it was a great move until everybody had to turn right, and then there was no room.
Yeah, but as we always say, you're always going to the same piece of property that everybody wants to get to, and the car in front usually has the right of way.
Coletti, the 26-year-old from Monaco, now finds himself running in 8th place in this race. Down to the pits in Doc.
Well, veteran car owner Chip Ganassi's been watching a lot of these races over the years. And Chip, this happened right in front of you. What did you see happen, and why do you think it happened?
Well, you know, Jerry, you see guys that was 2 or 3 wide down there, and and early on in the race, and a couple things. I mean, it's points racing. These guys, it's pretty hard to score points when you're up in the fence like that, and these guys are trying to win the race in the first 5 laps. It's hard to do. So you see these things happen in front of you week after week, and somebody's got to sit these young guys down and tell them that we got to get these races started clean so we can have a race.
Okay, Chip Ganassi, by the way, they are going to try to fix Tony Kanaan's car back in the garage area. Let's check in with Rick.
Well, there's been a question that a lot of people have been asking, which is, when do you go to slick tires? You know, remember, they start on rain, but the problem is, as the track dries out, those rain tires can be a problem. Well, Marco Andretti is the driver who came in and switched over to the slick tires first. Watch out his pit stop right there. You got the slicks out there. He's already ready to take those dries off. Now, it's a huge gamble. If it doesn't work, if the track is too wet, he's just going to slide all over the pace. On the other hand, if the track is dry enough, if he can find the right lines, he is going to move through this pack like you cannot believe. So, somebody had to do it first. That's the guy.
Rick, I totally agree with what you're saying, but there's only one issue. If you get off the line and you end up in the puddle, that's it, you're done. So it's a very risky move, and I would expect somebody like Marco Andretti would take that risk.
And to pass cars in front, you have to get off the line, so that's the risk on it.
One to go here, and a reminder to download the IndyCar 15 mobile app to get live streams from in-car cameras and more from Verizon, like this camera aboard the defending series champ Will Power's car. You know, and the other part of that, too, all of these teams are looking at their fairly sophisticated weather data and so on, and people are going to have to make those decisions all race long. Because, again, they're according to the things I'm looking at, we haven't seen the last of the rain. So if you're Marco's team, as you watch Sage Karam's team deal with some sort of problem in that car and a whole pile of others. Oops, somebody stalled. Filippi, slow getting away.
He almost spins again, trying to leave.
Hawksworth, Daly, and looked like Gabby Chavez were all in there on the pit lane.
Another problem that Marco Andretti is going to have is getting those tires up to temperature, Alan, because there's not that much room to weave or do whatever, and you have to get them up to temperature or they won't work. And
I think a few of the guys that were in there right now have decided to go ahead and put the slicks on. It usually just takes one person to go ahead and do that. Looks like the number 5 Aero car of Connor Daly, they've taken that risk also. Sage Karam still in the pit lane, and seems like they're working somewhere around the steering wheel, Eddie, so maybe call that electrical problem. But they did change tires, so they have gone ahead and left the wets on.
So as the track gets drier, the drivers that have the wet tires on still are going to have to keep them cooled off. So you'll see them going offline, trying to make sure they don't burn up those tires, because those tires are not made to run on a dry surface.
So the combination of the wet conditions to start, the changing conditions through the race, the strategy being played, and so on, we'll just use the word chaos to describe what's begun in this race and what we'll probably see for the next hour and a half or so. Coming green this time, Takuma Sato, winner a couple of years ago at Long Beach, driving for AJ Foyt. Can he get back to victory lane today? He leads to the green.
Now let's keep our eyes on Marco Andretti and see if he starts to pick up spots with the slick tires.
Marco's the last car in line there. It looks like he's being very gentle.
He has to keep it on that little spot in the middle that's the driest.
And the thing with the standard tires that we're using, they're a harder compound, so they're not as soft as the rain tires. As you watch the Honda telemetry here, just watch the throttle on it, 100%. Will it get the move done? We'll see. And watch for the brake. A lot of brake here at the end, and a lot sooner when the track is wet and you don't have the brake.
That's okay. Just stay with the line, because once they start coming in, then you're going to get them.
That's exactly what we said. You have to stay on the line. But as he builds up temperature in his tires, he will get confident, and he will stick his nose out there and try to get by. But he has to get back to the dry section, or he'll just take off like he has a pair of skates on ice.
And that was Marco's father, Michael Andretti, team owner and the strategist for Marco on the radio. As we now ride aboard with Juan Pablo Montoya, just watch on the left-hand side of your screen how bumpy it is compared to what we had last week at Indianapolis, where you sat back and you were smooth and precise.
There's nothing about smooth around here. This is all cement, and it's very bumpy, and especially in the braking zones. Now, all the drivers that have their rain tires on are just praying that it starts to rain again. And Sato is schooling everybody.
Here's Scott Dixon with a peek inside of Montoya for 4th place. Dixon falls back in line. Sebastian Bourdais behind Dixon. Here comes Scott again with a peek. And further back, Joseph Newgarden looks like he's struggling a little bit. There's James Jakes by him in the 7. Green car just ahead. Carlos Munoz in the 26. Dixon with a look on Montoya.
Oh, two very professional and experienced drivers made that happen. Got through there smoothly. Nicely done by both.
So as I have it, there are 4 drivers out there on the slick tires now. Marco Andretti is the furthest forward of them. Luca Filippi, Jack Hawksworth, and Connor Daly are the 4 that are on the slick tires at the moment.
And there are some very menacing clouds that are coming in.
What a week it's been for Juan Pablo Montoya. As more cars begin to make the move to pit road, Rick.
Last year's Indy 500 winner Ryan Hunter-Reay is one of those. He's been having an absolutely miserable weekend. The car just has not been able to come to grips with him. Remember last year he had kind of a lost weekend where he had all kinds of problems. He's the guy hoping for rain and hoping that these tires can help him move up.
Yellow, yellow.
Charlie Kimball is another one who put on the slick tires on that last caution, and it might have just cost him there.
The thing just snapped.
When you put slicks on in conditions like this, Scott, there is absolutely, you can't even go 5 inches offline. You have to stay on that dry section.
And a look at a very mangled race car from the Levemir Flex Touch on board. You see the red sidewall, the softer tires, the alternate tire on the Kimball machine, and the follow-up to his fabulous Indianapolis 500 finish, where he was in the fight for the win in the closing laps, will not be what he wanted.
You know, when you come out of turn 1 and go through turn 2, you go up over the bump there where there's a creek underneath, and they've got that little bridge there. Let's watch here. Oh, he's sideways, guys. He's up over the brow. Right where that bump is, he's already sideways. And when the car lands back on the ground, he's already pointed towards the wall. Now here's his onboard. Oh, you see the car gets in the air and the tires come up. And more difficult, Eddie, when you've got the slicks on, because you know when you land, you don't have the grip.
And that's really the worst kind. When you overcorrect like that, you go nose first into the wall. If you spin and the back comes around, that's one thing, but he actually caught it and then lost it and went nose first. And that is a big hit.
That's a big impact.
That's a big chunk of cement that he just moved 2 or 3 feet back. That's not a guardrail.
So third full course yellow out already in this race, and the good news, you did see Charlie climb from the car. The bad news is it has left a mess of debris, and filtered that through the fact that there's another race tomorrow that these crews have to get these cars ready to go with after a hit like that.
All this is playing into Marco Andretti's hands. The longer they stay without rain under this yellow condition, the more the track will dry and the bigger advantage he will have.
Well, it has been a challenging start to this one so far. And speaking of starts, the NBA Finals get underway on Thursday night. Cleveland Golden State, 9 Eastern here on ABC. And we start with NBA Countdown at 8:30. Let's see, LeBron in the finals for a 5th straight year. And the Warriors, what a great story with Steph Curry and so on. It should be very intriguing. And it all starts Thursday night. Who you got?
Cleveland, got to go with LeBron.
Hi. I hate it when you guys put me on the spot like that. I always watch LeBron, but I'm not going to bet on that.
That's the I'm a racer and I'm not really sure what to think, right?
So I just say nothing.
Yeah, there you go. I got it. Now Takuma Sato out in front, and you see just the snippet of sky. Look at the background on that shot right there.
And this is where it's so hard because you've got rain tires on. You know the rain is coming. As a driver, you're getting frustrated because you can't put the power down. When you put your foot on the gas, the car's squirming underneath you. You're radioing in saying, could I come in and put on slicks? And they're saying, no, the rain is coming. So it's a bit of a tussle between you and your race strategist back in there, but you really have to really listen to the pit lane and listen to those guys because they're looking at the weather app, Alan, just like you are.
So already a very eventful start to this race. 4 cautions for 8 laps. We've only run 15. A couple of cars out of the race. And again, they continue to work on Tony Kanaan's car and see if they can get him back in. And now when this pit road opens here, another layer of challenge to the rain tires or slicks strategy.
Rain tires on a dry track don't last very long. And if you get caught out with those and it doesn't start raining again, you're going to lose a lot of time.
Let's check downstairs with Rick.
Yeah, Takuma Sato leading this race. There was a lot of discussion before that yellow flag to decide what to do with regards to Takuma Sato,
Sato's
which tires to choose, and whether to go to the slicks any earlier. The yellow flag, for their perspective, came at exactly the right moment. So he leads everybody into the pits. Once again, they're taking off those rain tires, putting on the slick tires. They don't have to worry about red or blacks. They only have to run blacks. Quick shop, and he's out. Doc?
And Will Power did not want the slicks on until now. He said, let someone else be the guinea pig, not us. I will come in now. We will put the red, the alternate, softer compound blacks on. Trouble with the left rear. Will Power's left rear tire. And he is finally away, but it cost him about 3 or 4 extra seconds on pit road.
Wow, that was a long stop for Power, and we'll see where he sorts out in the running order.
And the pressure is on the crew there. You saw Will Power being in the very first box. And what ends up happening is that the crew knows that Sato's down the opposite end, so they're trying to get the work completed before obviously the car is going to go by. Now watch on our right side on the rear, but it's the left rear, and the tire just gets caught probably over the brake rotor and stuck. And then you see all the other guys, and as a driver, you're sitting in the car looking in the mirrors, and all those guys are coming out past you, and you know how hard it is to work to get past those other cars on the track.
All I can see right now is Marco Andretti's in the lead.
So the cycle from the early move to get onto the slick tires. It's Andretti up into the #1 spot. Will we get more weather? How's it all going to play out? Back after this from your ABC station. Feeling pretty comfortable that my use of the word chaos earlier was appropriate to describe the opening stages of the duel in Detroit today, as weather conditions have played havoc on the track, and with the strategy, Marco Andretti's team made the move to pit road at lap 9 to go to slick tires. He inherits the lead when everybody else pits behind him, but for everyone that's now on slick tires, eyes on the radar, there are more green blobs creeping in.
And being out on slicks in a fifth gear corner at 150 miles an hour when the clouds decide to empty themselves is not fun.
So Takuma Sato back in 8th place after the exchange of pit stops. All of the drivers in front of him pitted on a different schedule, and then Will Power losing 5 positions with that problem on the pit lane. And it puts him all the way back now into 14th place.
I think this yellow was actually not good for Marco. He would have been better off if people would have had to have come in because their rain tires are just getting worn up on this dry surface. So this is not an advantage for him. He actually lost something in this.
Well, but I'll say this. He's out in front on slicks, and now everybody else is on slicks. And if the weather comes again, they're all going to have to go to the rain tires at once if the weather starts. So Ricky kind of gained a bunch of track position there, and we'll see how it plays out going forward.
And think about one thing. We were talking about this at the start of the Indianapolis 500, and that's the fact that Michael Andretti is now back on the box calling strategy for Marco Andretti. Remember they were saying the fact that wasn't the case last year. He was doing it for Ryan Hunter-Reay. This year he is switching back, going with his son. And Marco says that guy right there, Michael Andretti, is the secret weapon. He's really good. He's the guy that made this strategy call and got him in the lead.
Well, the Andretti family running in the lead as we get ready to restart the race. Don't forget the second half of our IndyCar doubleheader from here at Belle Isle Park tomorrow afternoon here on ABC. Same time, same station, 3:30 Eastern, ABC on Sunday. And possibly same tricky conditions as well for that race.
You know, guys, not uncommon for the length of this racetrack on the island for it to be dry in one end and start to sprinkle on the other. So it's up to the driver sometimes to radio back and just let your team know that turn 3, 4, for instance, up in the north end, starting to get a little moisture on it.
So there's Will Power well back in traffic after starting on the pole, giving up the lead to Takuma Sato on the second lap of the race. Then pitting with Sato, but losing those 7 spots on the pit lane due to that left rear hiccup. Tony Kanaan's car repaired back in the garage, being brought back out to be restarted and rejoin the race. Kanaan is 10 laps down, about to become 11. Pace cars off. Marco Andretti, Luca Filippi, Jack Hawksworth, Connor Daly, and Stefano Coletti, the top 5 as the green waves again. Here's Coletti looking inside.
This is still a very treacherous track. You get offline, you have no grip.
Yeah, Connor got pushed out there with Coletti going on the inside, just enough to get those outside wheels on the damp part of the racetrack. You heard him wrestling with the throttle, just try to get traction.
And Marco looks like he had just a little bit more temperature in his tires than anybody else did because he had been out on them longer.
cars came charging down into turn 7, and there again at just how little margin for error there is if you get offline where the course is still wet.
That room for error is so small, as we always talk about. Here you're trying to get actually through the turns as quickly as possible, and as you end up getting, see Joseph Newgarden slow at the end there. We'll have to see if he's got anything going on with the car. It looks like possibly a rear wheel is flat in the right rear. There you go, because it was actually doglegging itself. So he either ran over something or else just ended up clipping the wall. But that's when you want to make sure you are very cautious on how close you get to the wall.
Second place, Jack Hawksworth in the 41. Gets around Felipe. Hawksworth up to the number 2 spot.
Good job. Foyt is very positive on Hawksworth.
So back to what happened to Joseph Newgarden. Takuma Sato is the other one involved, the former leader, wrinkling up that front wing.
Yeah, that front wing gets close to the sidewall of the tire. It just actually cuts it. The tire goes down, and he'll have damage on that left turn too. Look at these guys go at it.
2 Italians.
I was gonna say both raced in Europe.
If you can call someone from Monte Carlo Italian.
Saw Charlie Kimball take a pretty heavy hit a little while ago. Jan Beekes is with him.
Yes, he's made his way back to pit lane. Will Power said, I don't want slicks. I want someone else to be the guinea pig. I guess you were it.
Yeah, unfortunately, there were a few of us on slicks there, and I was kind of leading the pack. And we'd caught up to the back of the train on wets, and I just caught a puddle coming out of 2, and it's so quick there, the car just snapped. And it was a shame, because I think that it was the right call. I just couldn't quite hold on to it.
A case where you just have to stay very patient until it dries?
Yeah, even then, you have to balance the aggression and the patience. And, I think it was the right call by the Novo Nordisk team. We just, maybe we were a little more aggressive than we were patient at that point. So it's a shame, but we'll come back tomorrow and have a good race.
All right, that's one thing about double race weekend. Thank you, Charlie. Alan?
You see Castroneves going by Sato. The piece of Sato's wing flying off after the contact with Newgarden earlier damaged the left side of that front wing on the 14.
I think Sato's just trying to hold on, hoping there'll be a yellow so he can come in and change that front wing, which really isn't that bad of a strategy as long as he doesn't keep dropping pieces along the track, Scott.
Well, and the problem with that is if you're a driver, you run over it, the tire goes flat, as we saw, and here we go.
Here's his yellow.
Full course yellow.
And the yellow is for debris from the 14 car.
I'd be willing to bet that Sato will be going into the pits.
There are pieces of that front wing. I thought you always said that hope is not a good strategy.
Well, in this case, it was.
So already the 4th yellow of this race.
See the damage there on the right-hand side of your screen. Just missing all the different levels of the wing.
It's funny, we were talking to Larry Foyt this morning, team manager for AJ Foyt Racing, and one of the things he talked about was at this race a year ago. Remember, Sato started on pole for one of the 2 races, and through strategy and when cautions played out, got shuffled back into traffic, and then ended up having contact with another car that put him into the wall and took away what they thought was a good chance to win. Well, here, strategy shuffled him back into traffic, and he had contact with another car that may have just damaged his chance to win this one. Marco Andretti up front by virtue of the strategy call made by his father Michael. Will conditions play in his favor today? So as you saw, Takuma Sato's gone from leading the race to now being at the back of the pack after that wing change on pit road under the caution flag. And since we're in Detroit, very appropriate that the Tigers are on Sunday Night Baseball on ESPN out in Anaheim, visiting Mike Trout and the Angels. Detroit and LA, Sunday Night Baseball presented by Taco Bell, 8 Eastern on ESPN and live on Watch ESPN Sunday Night Countdown. Get things started at 7 Eastern. On to 1 to go. Here in the duel in Detroit, Marco Andretti is the race leader. Not something we've seen him do a lot in this season so far.
And he's done it under very difficult circumstances. Today is a very tricky race, and he's driving very well and not putting 1 foot wrong.
So Marco talking with his father Michael about circumstances, conditions, and meteorology.
Where's the range? What lap are we on? We're on lap 21, and we're here thinking rain in 28 minutes.
Here they come to the green. Will Power to the inside of Simon Pagenaud to pick up a spot. That's 11th place.
Always stood good going down under braking. We saw him do it last year on one of the restarts. Didn't end up with the greatest result for a few other people, but certainly one of these guys that can drive deeper into the turn than most.
Very, very bumpy track, and the drivers have said that under braking is where some of the biggest bumps are, so it makes it hard to control a car with cold tires.
And I always found here that when you're turning into the turn, you know where the bumps are. It's almost like you have to aim the car, so when the wheels come back down on the ground and make contact, you got them pointed in the right direction. It's almost like driving a boat going over waves.
Ryan Hunter-Reay running 5th.
Marco's definitely got the bit between his teeth.
Now remember, these guys are running in the dry, and some of them may have opted to put full rain setup on the race car. So that means usually that's a softer setup so it can handle the bumps and it rolls a lot easier, and it presumably gives you a little bit more grip. So in the dry, sometimes it's not optimum. So we'll have to see if somebody can make a big advantage here. Looks like Hawksworth in the 41 car is making a charge towards Marco Andretti as we ride along with him. You can watch the Honda telemetry. And just watch the throttle, the green, and the brake in the red as we ride along here.
Trouble into the barrier. Tristan Vautier. Local yellow for the moment as he has the car running. It hasn't left anything behind. And we stay green.
This is the first road race this year we don't have Penske cars up front.
Well, there's that whole weather conditions strategy and the moves made early to get on slicks. And, you know, you sit and you look at the qualifying order, the starting grid. The guys up front, unless the race starts wet and stays wet or starts dry and gets wet for everyone at the same time, they're at a disadvantage because you can't give up the track position. Right?
True.
So these guys, like Marco and like Hunter-Reay and so on, they weren't up there contending for the lead. So they had the luxury of gambling to come in and get the slicks. And when circumstances played in their favor, they gained the track position.
But they made the right choice when they gambled, which is part of very big part of racing.
Now look back here, guys. This is the situation we saw a second ago with Vautier. And as you watch what's unfolding here, Munoz, number 26, comes on the inside. Just a little bit of rub and go and sends off the competitor to the wet spot, which is exactly what you're trying to do. And he got going again, which was a great thing for Vautier. No damage.
So Vautier back in 18th place, last car on the lead lap. Fast lap of the race just set by the second car in your picture, Jack Hawksworth, driving AJ Foyt's 41.
Yes, he's closing the gap.
Debris on the racetrack. And that is literally sitting right in front of our booth.
Scott, why don't you go out and get it?
I mean, if I had a little longer arm, I could reach out. See that that booth right to the left of that picture there? That's us.
Yeah, with all the cars that have been running around here, I got to be honest with you and tell you, I'm not sure I'm loving the placement of the booth here, guys. There we go.
That's got to be 140 miles an hour, right in front of our booth.
So Rodolfo Gonzalez bouncing off the wall there. See the Venezuela logo on the rear wing of the backside of that car. And so debris brings out caution, I'm told now number 6, because the first lap, official lap of the race, was actually the last one before they turned him loose, green flag racing. So we actually started under a green-yellow condition. So update your score sheets, please, as I'm doing mine, to be yellow number 6 in this one.
And we are about 15 minutes away from the rain predictions. And when they've come, they have been serious.
And unless you've damaged your car, you would stay on the track now knowing you may have to come in and go back for the rain tires shortly. So pit road will be quiet under this yellow flag. Coming to the green as you watch Scott Dixon running in 9th place. Doc?
Yeah, they're getting ready to go to green, and so Scott Dixon getting ready to take the green flag here. Mike Hall wanting to call the green. Let's let Mike call the green, and we'll get a quick comment on what they're thinking about doing with the rain moving in very quickly.
All right, Doc, thanks. So there is Dixon. And again, the guys that qualified up front and led the start of this race trapped from 7th place on back by others who qualified toward the back but were able to gamble and make the move to pit lane for slick tires earlier. If the rain hits and everybody has to go to the rain tires at once, that will help them protect that track position and might be the move of the day for people like Marco Andretti and Jack Hawksworth and Luca Filippi and Stefano Coletti and Ryan Hunter-Reay, who have the top 5 spots. Pace car pulls away, and we'll try this again. Connor Daly inside of Ryan Hunter-Reay to pick up 5th place in that 5 car.
A very bold move and did it very deliberately. Nicely done.
Will power all the way to driver's right to turn 3.
Through the damp patch, I might add.
Simon Pagenaud in that 22 trapped back in traffic. Just curious driver's mindset. Spent a lot of time riding around behind the pace car in this race so far. Does that make you more patient or less patient when they wave the green flag?
I think it really depends on the driver. Sometimes you're on there talking to your team, trying to come up with a strategy of what you might do in the next pit stop, but obviously it goes out the window if it turns to being wet. But I think some drivers really sit back and get calculated and get ready to go, and some drivers take a few laps to warm up. It really comes down to the driver.
Just sensed a little antsiness in some of that we were watching toward the back of the field there in that first lap after the restart.
I am really impressed with Daly. Very difficult circumstances on a very difficult day, and he is holding his own against a driver like Hunter-Reay.
Made that nice move on Hunter-Reay as we saw here. Now what's happening back here? Takuma Sato and Sage Karam.
Remember Indianapolis, turn 1, lap 1 a week ago.
What is Sage doing? What is Sage doing?
He's issuing a payback, perhaps?
Yeah, well, he's going to be paying something. It's going to be a check this week for a blocking. And I don't think they're finished here.
Remember the first turn crash that Karam and Sato a week later had very differing views on still as to who was at fault.
Yeah, there's something more to that than we saw.
Well, I spoke with Sage, and I guess when they ended up having a discussion a little bit earlier on, we saw that those guys working on it, and it looked like Jake's making a move past Chavez, and he has actually just got a little bit sideways, a little bumping going on. Looks like his tire's flat. Yes, right rear tire being flat. Just want to finish off the Sage Karam and Takuma Sato story real quickly. Those two guys got into a shoving match at the end of the Indianapolis 500, trying to discuss who was right and who was wrong in that first turn incident.
So Chavez trying to limp back around to the pit lane, and that debris is going to bring out another full course caution.
You were asking about the mindset, Alan. So now what a driver says, okay, on this next restart, I have to make up positions like we saw with Connor Daly on the previous restart, because all the cars are closer together, so a great opportunity to make up some time.
And also a very easy way to get knocked out of the race, as we've seen with all of these cautions. So it's a very fine line today.
Sorry, Eddie. So before we were trying to get an update on Scott Dixon, and they were just coming to the green, so we waited on that. But here's the strategy and the conversation surrounding the former champ.
position 1 and race up to the front if we can here, just because of the rain that's coming. We want to race as hard as we can here because we think rain's coming, so track position now is going to be important.
Here with Mike Hall, who calls the race here for Scott Dixon. Mike, we heard you tell Scott a moment ago, track position so important and got to race hard. You just told him the rain is less than 15 minutes away. What do you do strategy-wise? You're on slicks and the rain's coming.
That's what we were just talking about up here. We don't want to be the last people to put wets on, so
Pits are open, Mike.
we're going to hang on.
Okay, they're trying to make a decision now as they're talking about maybe bringing him in under this yellow, and they are going to bring him in. They're going to lay out, go ahead and make the call now. They've been told the rain is like 8 minutes away. Sprinkles will start in a few minutes. Need to get the rain tires on. So Dixon will probably lead a charge of many who will come on the pit road.
Well, he'll be the first one to come in, Doc, from 9th place. And maybe the only one to come in. So they're going to make the play that they're going to put the rain tires on, make them last until it starts to rain, and everybody else is going to have to come in and back out behind them, Doc.
And they're going to have to make one more stop for fuel, so the rain tires are going on. These are grooved Firestone tires, making sure they get... And Dixon is down and away, but remember, these tires on a dry racetrack will wear quickly because they will build up a lot of heat and wear, so Dixon's going to have to be able to find as much wet track as possible, and they got to hope they guessed right on the sprinkle starting in about 4 or 5 minutes and heavy rain in about 8 or 9.
I'd just like to have a piece of all the weather apps and radars that are getting used around the circuit right now. Back after this from your ABC station.
Should I slow and overtakes on these restarts?
You know, they have a couple of casinos around the Detroit and Windsor area. And there's some gambling going on the racetrack too. Strategy being played by Scott Dixon's team. They put the wet tires on, you saw a minute ago. Also, Elio Castroneves was called in by Roger Penske to get the wet tires as we wrap up this yellow flag with Marco Andretti leading.
Overtakes on these restarts? Yes. Let the pace car get away further next time, so back off quicker and let them go away from you.
Strategy from behind the wheel and discussing that push to pass, the momentary boost in horsepower that drivers can use 10 times. It lasts for 15 seconds each during the course of the race. When will the rain hit? What will get hit? It looks like another hit already as Connor Daly has contact and heads to pit road as the green waves.
Whoa, 2 teammates there.
Watch power. Yeah, here he goes on the inside. Ryan Hunter-Reay.
As Felipe and Coletti keep exchanging blows.
Looks like for Ryan Hunter-Reay and that
Marco
yellow car.
Andretti is hiccuped. His car hiccuped in turn 4. He's lost the lead. Andretti slowed
I don't
briefly.
know.
Jack Hawksworth now out in front.
No radio transmission from Scott.
Well, here we go. Whatever it is, it looks like he's actually
Fine now.
back up to proper power. We'll tell here shortly as he starts to put his foot on the gas, coming out turns, and there you see the 41 of Hawksworth going in the lead.
How about Coletti second and Felipe third?
Other things.
Stay out, stay out.
Hunter-Reay dives to pit road. Others dive to pit road, looking for most likely rain tires. Will Power takes the lead. Jan?
And Jack Hawksworth takes the opportunity to go for the rain tires. You heard all that radio communication. Some people are diving for pit road. Some people decide to stay out. It's only sprinkling. So Hawksworth, he slides it sideways, and a few other Coletti also getting rain tires as well as Bourdais.
You will also see Sage Karam drive through the pit lane, a penalty for blocking to be issued to the number 8 car, that thing we saw with he and Sato a little bit earlier.
And Dixon on Wets is in 6th position.
But all these guys that have wets on now, as you well know, Eddie, you have to be so cautious with the wets not to actually destroy the blocks.
All right, what happened to Marco Andretti that cost him the lead a minute ago?
Yep, actually the engine's gone into limp mode. You can see everybody piling up behind them. There's a couple of different options for the fuel knob on there with some fail-safe, as they call it. You start to see the water coming on the lens of the camera. So what he smartly did was actually just turn the fuel knob into a different map position, which rectified the problem for him.
Now, when you're on a wet track and it's drying, you have the option of when you can come in. But when you're on a dry track and it starts to rain with these slicks, you don't have a choice. You have to get into the pits immediately. So right now it's just a little bit of a sprinkle and they can stay out. But when it rains, if it does rain like it did before, you have no grip.
So, Power, Andretti, Munoz, Pagano. Those are the first 4 that are on the slick tires. Then Dixon running 5th and Castroneves running 6th, the first on the wet tires.
But Alan, every lap that Dixon and Castroneves do on a dry track will be ruining a tire.
I think we can stay out. Right, then stay out one more.
These guys are making hay right now. They're running 10 seconds a lap faster than Scott Dixon, who was the first car on those wet tires.
And how difficult this call is, right? The driver's behind the wheel. He's got significant input into this call, but he's not looking at the weather radar.
Follow Will, follow Will.
That's the perfect call.
Here they come to the pit entry.
And Will goes in, and he did not follow Will. So far, Marco has not put a foot wrong this race.
Doc?
And we watch Will Power. Remember that first stop where they had trouble with the outside rear tire? The tire got hung up and cost him 3.2 extra seconds and 5 spots on the racetrack. Now changing all 4 tires, putting rain tires on. Got to get it full of fuel. Holding, and now he's away. Flawless pit stop that time for Will Power.
Where's Dixon? Got out ahead of him. Power gets out on the rain tires ahead of Scott Dixon. So now when Marco Andretti pits, you watch to see where Andretti and Will Power come together on the racetrack to see how these strategies are playing out.
Oh, I think you should pit now since we're losing time. You got to take the whole track. This is dry back here.
It's a risk-reward ratio. I mean, it is dry. You can see the sprinkles on the lens.
His dad is 100% right. It's Marco's call. If he is confident he could do another one, every lap he does, he puts distance between him and the cars that have wets on if it's not that wet on the track. Let's see what he does. And he goes for another one.
I'll bet that's some entertaining radio to listen to, Rick.
It has been very entertaining. And remember, just a little while ago, I was talking about the critical issue that Michael Andretti is now back calling the strategy for Marco. But in this race, this situation right now, it is Marco who's making all the decisions. Several times, Michael has said, all right, let's come in now. And each time, Marco has come back on the radio and said, I'm watching the track all the way around. It's dry on the backside. I want to stay on the dry. So it's Marco who's making this call right now.
So that's the drama at the moment. As we're across halfway, weather threatens on the radar. It is sprinkling a little bit at various places around the racetrack, but Marco Andretti continues to lead on slick tires with Carlos Munoz also staying out on the slick tires. And then Simon Pagano also running 3rd on slick tires. Then Will Power and Scott Dixon 4th and 5th.
Dixon's destroying his tires on a track like this. He was hoping it was going to rain immediately when he put them
sooner,
on.
yeah, it's so difficult. As we were talking about, you actually tear those tread blocks off those rain tires, Doc.
And guys, Scott Dixon just radioed and said, my tires are dead, meaning they're gone. Exactly what you said, guys, up in the booth. He did not get the rain and the water quick enough, and he said he has basically worn these rain tires completely away, so they're not going to be very effective. Now what do you do if you're my call? What do you do for Scott Dixon?
And Marco keeps on doing his laps with the slicks. This is now 3 laps, I believe, that he stayed out when his father told him to come in.
And Marco Andretti slowed down.
Right now, keep going.
Slowed down about a second or two, but here's the difference in keeping your tires good. Scott Dixon has been running about a 92-second lap. Will Power, knowing he cannot abuse those tires, is about another 10 seconds slower than Dixon, so he knows he has to stay on the track just to keep the tires underneath him. Otherwise, pit stop will cost you a lot more time.
From where we're sitting.
About 2 more laps till we have to pit for fuel. About 2 more laps for fuel.
So here's the...
Slick.
Yep, so
Well,
he's...
we're watching the weather. It's supposed to get bad.
You see, the driver only sees what he sees on the racetrack. The strategist, with all the engineers with their laptops sitting in the pit lane, is seeing all the weather coming. But Eddie, you know, as a driver, you know you're making time and you're leaving everybody behind. You just want to go with what you know is working.
Marco is not putting a foot wrong. He's doing everything he possibly can to keep that advantage. And he's driving impeccably. Let's see what he does. And he goes for another one.
So Andretti's up 36 seconds on Will Power at the moment. And again, don't forget Munoz and Pagenaud still out there on the slicks as well. Munoz is 3 seconds behind Andretti, Pagenaud 3.5. So those 3 are all playing this same game.
And he's got to come in for fuel pretty soon.
And there are Munoz and Pagenaud right there in the camera shot. Second and third, 26 and 22. Ryan Hunter-Reay just off the pit lane after another pit stop, also received a warning for avoidable contact. It was Hunter-Reay that hit Connor Daly on that restart accordion and flattened the tire on the 5 car. Traffic now for Andretti.
Hit this lap. We're going to have to go to wet, so we think it's going to rain here in about 5 minutes.
And that wasn't a question. That is pit this lap. That's a no option.
That's at the limit of their fuel window. And having caught some slower cars, then you're going to start to lose time there also.
And Munoz is right behind him.
About 22 seconds to be in pit lane, get service, and leave. So he should still be able to come out in front of the guys that have the wets.
Power's 46 seconds.
Make sure you hit your marks. It's pretty wet in pit lane. Pitting.
Looks like Pagenaud got tangled up with Chavez trying to get to the pit lane. But he got there. Rick?
Yeah, this has been a very interesting strategy race, and Marco is the man calling all the shots. He's the one ideally would have stayed out. It's just the fuel situation. They needed to come in, and now they're putting him on those wet tires, Doc.
Likewise, Simon Pagenaud, the 2013 winner, coming in for his rain tires. Going to get it completely full of fuel. Strategy, track position, important. And he will follow, he will not follow the 98 car down. He will pass him entering turn 1.
So,
every puddle you can.
Marco Andretti and Simon Pagenaud there, just off the pit lane, while Carlos Munoz couldn't get untangled from the lap car and is now the race leader. So there's your race leader, Carlos Munoz, the 23-year-old from Bogota, now living in Miami. And we'll probably see him on the pit lane for the rain tires. And then the question is, when are we going to see the rain? It's close, I promise you.
Right now, Verizon is offering unlimited talk and text, plus 10 gigs of shareable data. Yeah, 10 gigantic gigs for $80 a month and $15 per line. More data than ever for more of what you want on the network that's #1 in speed, call, data, and reliability. So you never have to settle. $80 a month for 10 gigs and $15 per line. Stop by or visit us online and save without settling. Only on Verizon.
I loved my trusty Honda, but I kept noticing all the amazing tech new cars have lately. How much for this? $2. So I looked around.
When is this even from?
I don't know. And I decided to leave my Honda for a new Honda. My Accord EXL has super cool tech features like forward collision warning, audio touchscreen, and Honda Lane Watch. New is good.
How much for this?
Oh, that's not for sale.
Oh.
Hey!
Start something special with an Accord EXL from Honda. on the highway, the back way, the straightaway, some other way. At Firestone, we believe when the rubber meets the road, the rubber should always win. Durable, dependable, Firestone tires. Whatever you drive, drive Firestone.
Appears Buster's been busy.
Yeah, Scott. I was just about to use...
I've got a much better idea, lad. Scott's Easy Seed uses the finest seed, fertilizer and natural mulch that holds water so you can grow grass anywhere. Looking good, lad.
Thanks, Scott. Easy Seed really works. So, how come Haggis is so well behaved?
Because he's a Scotty. Oh. Get Scott's Easy Seed. It's guaranteed. Seed your lawn. Seed it.
Let's dance.
Sunday, we've got comedy, dancing, and dancing comedies. It's a Sunday night celebration with the Dancing 10th Anniversary event. And keep dancing with your favorite comedies. The Middle, The Goldbergs, Modern Family, and Blackish.
Let's get a wiggle out.
It's a swinging Sunday, so show us what you got.
You can raise the roof into the cabbage patch.
I can do the single lady hand thing.
Put your neck into it or you just look like the Queen waving. Okay, now you're ready.
It all starts Sunday on ABC.
What an incredible twisting, turning race in the duel at Detroit. Here at the Raceway at Belle Isle Park, Carlos Munoz just on and off the pit lane, onto the wet tires, and with the race lead. You hear the tires squealing as he comes around the corner. I'm telling you, when you look at the radar, it is everything but raining here, and various parts of the racetrack report little sprinkles. It looks like the bottom's going to fall out when you look at the radar. Just the question is, whose tires will not last until then?
And you hear the tires squealing again. As a driver, you know that you are going to wear those tires off very quickly. And more importantly, if it does start to rain, new rain tires are so much better than tires that even have 10, 15 laps on. If you abuse these tires, you take the edge off those square blocks that are actually on those rain tires. And as a driver, you can notice a huge difference. So he has enough of a lead right now that Munoz needs to cut back just a little bit to save those tires.
If I was Munoz, I'd be running off the line.
Everyone else is on it too, so just hang in there.
I'd be running off the line looking for every little puddle and every little bit of misty track that there is.
How big a lead? There's Munoz. Tires squealing and all? Not yet. Not yet. Montoya was just on and off pit lane with another stop. He's back in 14th place, and there's Marco.
Montoya's a lap down.
That's 21.9 seconds between Munoz and Andretti. Munoz had stopped about 6 laps later than Andretti on the last cycle to go on. Remember when Marco made the move to go on to the wets that got him the early track position, go on to the slicks rather, that got him the early track position. Munoz stopped about 6 laps later. That was the extra fuel he was able to run.
It's raining.
On the slick tires.
It's raining.
To get ahead. From Simon Pagenaud's car, and a reminder to download the IndyCar 15 mobile app to get live streams from in-car cameras and more from Verizon.
It's only raining on half the track.
Remember I said to you earlier on the show, I've seen it here where it's been raining in turns 3 and 4, sprinkles coming down and dry on the south end.
Those few laps he did in front of Marco on slicks made all the difference. Gave him an enormous cushion. There he is. He's looking for wet spots. You have to take as much temperature as you can out of these tires if you want them to last.
Now, the most important thing for Carlos Munoz is to be textbook, not to go and drive the car past its limit, but you are starting to find out where the traction is as you're the leading driver right now. Now, along with Will Power.
Whoa.
Just trying to apply the
See, that's
power.
what he's doing. He's trying to just not use anything.
So part of the course is wet, part of the course is not. All of the course could get very wet very soon.
And we have 26 laps to go.
26-second lead over second place. So just keep the car, save fuel where you can, save fuel where you can.
26 seconds. That is a lifetime. See, that section, Scott, looks very wet.
That's down around the fountain.
turns 8, 9, 10, leading up to 11 here. It is all very slippery when we talk about this because of the concrete. It's not pavement. It is so slippery. They have done a lot of work here. They've actually put down a lot of new concrete in a lot of areas. But Eddie, you and I talked about this. This is a very tricky racetrack, and a temporary street circuit. Remember, these are like streets, so there's a crown in the road in the middle. So when you turn into a corner like he's going to now, you go up the crown, hit the middle, fall back down. He'll do the same thing here, going through turns 1 and 2, and then turn 2 has also that big bump in it. And anytime you're in the wet, you have limited adhesion, and you got to be so cautious to make sure that you're guiding the car the direct way.
Carlos Munoz out in front by playing the strategy just right and having circumstances fall his way. Can the 23-year-old score a win today in Detroit?
Okay guys, we've got 2 cars here, and we're gonna start watching a movie in the Chevy Malibu.
He's flying!
Okay guys, pause the movie. We're gonna watch the rest of it in the Toyota Camry. Hit play again.
What happened? You can't watch the movie. No network connection.
Who wants to go back in the Chevy Malibu?
Let's go! Peace out.
Chevrolet, the first and only car company to bring built-in 4G LTE Wi-Fi to cars, trucks, and crossovers.
This is cool. Yeah.
My school reunion's coming fast.
Could be bad.
Could be a blast.
Can't find a single thing to wear.
Will they be looking at my hair?
Won't be the same without you, bro.
Should I stay or should I go? When it's go to thenewchoicehotels.com. The site with the right room, rewards, and savings up to 20% when you book direct. choicehotels.com.
As the host of a popular home improvement show, I know a lot about finding a great contractor for home repairs and improvement projects. Now there's HomeAdvisor.com, a free service that matches your project to top local service professionals.
We didn't have to do any work other than say what we needed.
Just 1, 2, 3, I found my guy and everything was smooth.
And it's always free to use.
We've had nothing but fabulous every single time.
Go to HomeAdvisor.com now to get started on your next project.
The essence of racing.
Back live in Detroit, the yellow flag out. After 46 of 70 laps in race 1 of our weekend doubleheader here, the yellow flag is for lightning in the area. Course workers, spectators, competitors, television cameramen, and so on. The caution being thrown for lightning within a radius of the area that officials, under an appropriate abundance of caution, will put out the flag, and we'll see if the race is going to be halted while we wait for this weather to pass. And of course, we are past halfway. If conditions don't allow, that also might come into play also. The yellow erases a 28-second lead that Carlos Munoz had over Marco Andretti. What an incredible twist and turning day it's been. Just joining us, we had rain showers come into the area not long before the start. The race began with a series of yellow flags. Incidents in the 3rd lap, the 5th lap, the 13th, 20th, 26th, 30th laps. A rash of yellow fever at the beginning of this one, combined with drying conditions that saw Marco Andretti make a move to pit road to get slick tires very early on in the race, followed shortly after by Carlos Munoz and some others. Andretti and Munoz stayed out on those slick tires after others began ducking in, seeing the impending rain, getting rain tires. And it all worked out in their favor. Now they run 1-2, Munoz and Andretti. As the rain showers have hit, the lightning comes into the area, and the field slowed behind the pace car. Whew.
That's a lot going on.
Where does it go from here? And thankfully, I can read my own writing most of the time.
You made me dizzy.
We're back to see how it all turns out after this from your ABC station. Back live in Detroit, you see the red flag being waved from atop the starter stand while Luca Filippi has climbed from his car in turn 1 under the yellow flag. Filippi went straight off into the tire barrier in that corner. And fortunately, he's out of the car and okay.
If you look in the background here by the Chevy pickup truck, you can see he's actually going straight. We're not clear what happened with it, if there was a problem with the car, but certainly under yellow, a driver knows it's caution time. You're going slow, so we'll wait to get a report on that.
Meantime, the field parked along the pit lane, and the red flag being displayed. Again, some lightning in the area, and under an abundance and a proper amount of caution, Verizon IndyCar Series officials are stopping the race. And we'll wait and see what the eventual outcome of the day is, but the race stops with young Carlos Munoz as your race leader. So I talked all about a moment ago all the eventful things that have happened through these 47 laps of this one. Why don't we show you some of it now in our Mother's Race Rundown? If you're just joining us, started with a bang early on.
With Coletti going on the inside, anytime you try to take a space from another driver, try to make it 3 wide going to the turn, you certainly have a problem. And both Kanaan and James Jakes ended up getting the worst of it. And then came along Graham Rahal, who put his car out for the day.
So the strategy has turned out to be a big factor in this race.
Absolutely. And by coming in and taking slicks as early as he did, he took a big risk, but that risk paid off. And he just kept on out there when his dad kept telling him to come in and put rain tires on, and he didn't. And then he had that little bit of a problem. We don't think it was maybe electronics that created something there, but and here he is taking the lead, and he just kept on going.
So Marco came in. Carlos Munoz had run further on fuel before taking his slick tires earlier on that same strategy, so he could run longer on the slick tires. When Marco pitted, Munoz stayed out, and it allowed him to open up a massive advantage at the front of the pack that eventually, when he went in for the wets, allowed him to keep the lead.
And he drove impeccably. He kept on gaining distance on Andretti, stayed out of trouble, and I don't think anybody would have come close to touching him had they not stopped for lightning.
Yeah, now, so another thing to mention there, right? We talked all about the strategy and the good call by Andretti Autosport to get their cars up front, but masterful driving under those tricky conditions by both Carlos Munoz and Marco Andretti. The trickiness of being on the slicks when the track was still drying earlier, and then staying on the slicks when the track was beginning to get damp later.
And they were willing to take that risk because their pits were telling him, at least in Marco's case, pit now. And he kept on going, and he kept on risking, and that risk paid off. And I love it when a driver makes a decision like that and he gets away with it.
So red flag out. Again, the race is past halfway, but we will wait for a determination from IndyCar officials as to whether they're going to restart the race, how long that might be, or what the circumstances are. Please stay with us. Red flag for threatening weather in Detroit. The duel in Detroit stopped under the red flag for lightning in the area here at the raceway at Belle Isle Park. 47 to 70 laps complete, and Carlos Munoz is your race leader. What if your imaginary friend wasn't imaginary? Watch the series premiere of The Whispers, Monday, 10/9 Central, here on ABC. So Carlos Munoz came to most of our attention for the first time at the Indianapolis 500 a few years ago, and ever since that point, you've used one word to describe him very frequently, Eddie, and that's brave.
Extremely brave, but today he's very, for lack of a better word, adult. It was incredible how he managed his race. He kept on driving with slicks in difficult conditions, came in after he put a big gap between him and Andretti, put some rain tires on, and he just kept on going. He takes the most unorthodox lines at Indianapolis and gets away with it. And then he comes here to a slow place like this, Scott, in terrible conditions, and just outthinks everybody.
And we talked about this before, how different the racetracks are. Indianapolis, where you're going 225 miles an hour, trying to be smooth and precise, a small movement with the steering wheel. Here, going around this really tough street course where you're being beat up all the time and being abused inside the car. And the driver's now been in here since it's been wet, so they're sitting in a cockpit that's being soaking wet. You're sitting in a seat that's probably got water in it. You know how uncomfortable that is, Eddie, and it's difficult to see, but he didn't make a mistake. He followed through with the strategy, kept going very quickly on the slicks like you mentioned, and didn't go wrong when it got wet on the racetrack. So give him great kudos for that, because I think he has an opportunity to win this race if we go back and race.
Well, there you see the story. The top left of your picture, the severe weather advisory to the fans here on the grounds at the raceway at Belle Isle Park. It is why we're under the red flag in our duel in Detroit, and it's raining awfully hard. And back here live at the raceway at Belle Isle Park, you see the rain pouring down, and the weather's very definitely taken a turn for the worse. And our first of two duel in Detroit races for the Verizon IndyCar Series under the red flag at the moment because of the lightning in the area. Alan Bestwick, Eddie Cheever, Scott Goodyear with you, waiting for determination of whether we're going to wait and restart the race, or whether, since we're after halfway, this event might be called official. IndyCar officials will let us know that whenever that kind of a decision has been made. But this is the first of two races, so after everything we've seen today, from the early laps contact and so on, and running these race cars in the rain, now these crews face a long night to get ready for another race here tomorrow.
One of the biggest challenges they have is there's lots of electronics on these cars. They got to get them out of the rain and get them dried up. But there's a lot of broken cars, Scott. There's a lot of broken Egos right now to repair for tomorrow, but they come back tomorrow. Start all over again.
Well, the thing I always found when you ran in the rain, especially when you've learned something, you always put it in the back of your head about what you want to change for the next race. Well, that next race is tomorrow. So the guys that didn't have a very good car here today, knowing that tomorrow's probably going to be in the wet, you're going to go back and sit with your engineers very late tonight and saying it didn't do this well, this well, this well. What do we need to do to change that for tomorrow? And I think the guys that you see that are struggling with grip, sliding the car around, doing all those sorts of things, having problems under braking, that's what you're trying to fix as a driver. You want the car as easy as possible to drive. You don't like doing a lot of work inside the cockpit and putting yourself on edge.
And yet, the weather forecast for tomorrow at this point is just as iffy as it was for today. So add another wrinkle to all of that for these race teams and drivers to consider on tonight. Last week's Indianapolis 500 paid double points. Well, this is a double race weekend, so just as many championship points on the line here. And race number 2 of the duel in Detroit for the IndyCar Series is here on ABC tomorrow at 3:30 Eastern Time with a green flag. It could be a rather interesting weekend where the championship picture is concerned. Point leader Montoya is well deep in the pack here. Back live to the raceway at Belle Isle after this from your ABC station. Under the red flag now for a little over 14 minutes with Carlos Munoz leading the duel in Detroit. That is stopped because of lightning in the area. You see the running order as they sit under the red flag coming across the top of your screen with Munoz and Marco Andretti holding the top 2 spots. Will Power, who started on pole, sitting 4th. Juan Pablo Montoya is a lap down, and he is in 10th position. Montoya, the championship leader, starting the day for the Verizon IndyCar Series. So I talked about the double points last weekend for the Indianapolis 500, and Montoya opening up his championship lead a little bit after that race. And he's going to give about half and actually a little more of that back to Will Power if this race doesn't resume at all today.
And very frustrating because he's in circumstances that he really has no control out of. We saw him on the racetrack trying to stay out and keep those rain tires underneath him, but he really just burned them off, Alan, and had to come in and make a change and put another new set on.
Once you got out of sync today, you were really in trouble, and it was obvious that the 2 Andretti cars had the right concept today.
Circumstances, the right call at the right time, the right weather hits at the right time, and all of that. A lot goes into deciding the outcome of one of these, and it may not be done yet. We're still on hold here in Detroit. So red flag is out. Carlos Munoz leads. Will it be his first Verizon IndyCar Series win, or will we see the green flag again and the conclusion of this race in a little while? Stay tuned to find out. It's not a pretty scene. The raceway at Belle Isle Park under rain and threatening weather as the first of the duel in Detroit races for this weekend for the Verizon IndyCar Series sits under a red flag with Carlos Munoz leading. Munoz started this race 20th. on the grid. When Marco Andretti pitted at lap number 9, the first to go onto the slick tires, it was at lap 15 that Munoz followed him in, which allowed him to stay out longer when this happened.
And you run an extra couple of laps on those slick tires, and he turns out and makes that lead just a little bit more. But he's done a very masterful job of getting through the conditions that we've had today, and strategy has helped him get up to.
And don't forget, he started 20th. He had to get through a lot of stuff. He had a 30-second lead on the second place car when they red flagged this race. That's a big gain.
A couple of guys have gotten their first IndyCar Series wins here at Belle Isle. Helio Castroneves, Simon Pagenaud, not bad company to keep. And if Munoz is eventually the winner of this race, he would become the second first-time winner this year in the IndyCar Series, as Joseph Newgarden won the race down at Barber Motorsports Park a couple of weeks ago. It can be one of the most difficult things for a driver to do, to get that first win, to have all the circumstances fall properly. Remember your first win and what it felt like?
Oh, it's relief. You know, absolutely relief. And it doesn't matter if it's your first win of your career, or when I spoke to James Hinchcliffe when he changed to a new team this year, I texted him directly after that. I said, great job. And he goes, nice to get that out of the way. That always plays in the back of your mind. You want to win races, but you know when the first one is there and when the first one with a new team. Very important.
What about you? First win? Remember what it was like?
I still remember my first go-kart win, so I could go on all about it. And that was a long time ago. But it tells you that the work that you've done was worthwhile, that all the belief you had in yourself was worthwhile, that the belief the team had in you is worthwhile. And when you go back to work after that first win, it's a different playing field.
And the other part of it, it can be in an era in motorsport where it's very expensive to do and the number of seats and available seats are limited. Getting the opportunity to get that first win does something for your resume and your future that you can't put a finger on. And word coming in from race control, this race is being declared complete. Past halfway, the threatening weather and so on in the area, so indeed we do have a first-time winner in the IndyCar Series, and Carlos Munoz will get the trophy from race 1 in the Duel of Detroit as you look at the unofficial results.
Can I say something here? Not only did Carlos Munoz win, but he beat a fellow Colombian that had just won the Indianapolis 500, who everybody said was going to win easily today. That is quite an accomplishment.
When you look at it right now, also the thing that comes to me is Honda has just won here in Detroit, the race sponsored by Chevrolet.
You're right.
Well, the ability to be, by starting back in the grid, we talked about this earlier, freeing them up to take that strategy gamble on going to the slicks sooner and getting them the track position over the others who couldn't afford to do so, put Munoz in position, and he and the Andretti Autosport team capitalized today. And as a word goes out, left of your screen, the team gets the word, the race is official, and they are the winners here today in Detroit. So Carlos Munoz gets the victory, his first career win. Marco Andretti will finish second, Simon Pagenaud, Will Power, and Scott Dixon, the top 5. The alternate victory lane being set up inside a building where we will be able to talk with Carlos and get his reaction to his first win. That's coming up when we continue from Belle Isle. Back live the raceway at Belle Isle Park, where Carlos Munoz gets the win in Duel in Detroit race number 1, a race shortened by threatening weather in the area. And as we get up to speed with Carfax, yes, I know normally we do that with a car screaming by at top speed on the racetrack, but when he was out front in the lead, Munoz did plenty of speeding by out front and in great style in the difficult conditions today.
A phenomenal first win.
And very impressive not only in the dry, when traction is good and you feel confident in your car, but very impressive when the conditions were at their worst. And when it's easy to make a mistake, especially driving so quickly in between these concrete walls here on this temporary street course.
So as they push Munoz's car back toward the rain victory lane, the alternate victory lane, we look at the unofficial results of today's event. Munoz and Andretti 1 and 2 for Andretti Autosport, and Simon Pagenaud becomes the highest finishing of the Penske drivers today on kind of that same strategy that Munoz and Andretti were.
And it was very interesting to see a lot of people gamble like we did with Scott Dixon, thinking the rain was coming in when the track was dry, putting on rain tires. That strategy did not work out for him today.
And that Penske domination did not happen. Of all places where you expected it to happen, you thought it happened here at Motor City in Detroit.
And Tony Kanaan involved in that early contact, as was Graham Rahal. Those drivers and those teams with another chance at it here tomorrow when we reconvene at 3:30 Eastern Time here on ABC for another 70-lap go in the second of the Duel in Detroit doubleheader races for the IndyCar Series. Now, as we look ahead to that race tomorrow, again, the weather forecast calls for the possibility of some weather, and a cool front's going to come through here in Detroit tonight that's bringing all this rain we're getting now, and the temperature may be as much as 20 degrees colder when they wave the green flag for this race tomorrow. What does that mean to the cars, how they'll perform, and to the drivers?
Well, a lot of it depends on where the track is dry or wet, but whenever you get a colder track, the engines, the cars, the tires perform differently, and you can have a fast car one day and a really slow car the next.
And the drivers like it because it's a little cooler inside the cockpit. I mean, it was very warm today, very muggy today, so the drivers are really getting hot inside the cockpit. But you know something? It doesn't matter what the conditions are. It's the same for everybody. There's going to be a lot of work going on in the trailers tonight with the engineers trying to make that best guess estimate for what will happen tomorrow. And a lot of drivers, as I mentioned before, are wanting to make a lot of changes. So if you did well today, are you going to tweak it or take a big gamble? And if you're further back, you know something? Let's go do a big change because we're not going to win with what we had today.
Also on the schedule for tomorrow, another qualifying session to set the grid for that race number 2. So it'll be a long night tonight and a very full and busy day tomorrow here for the IndyCar Series teams in Detroit. Will that be what we see when we come to the racetrack tomorrow, or will the front have moved through and we get dry conditions for the race and paint a very much different picture tomorrow than what we saw here today? Strategy and making it work when conditions were not at their best. Those were the keys to Carlos Munoz getting the win today here in Detroit. He's still making his way to victory lane. We will effort to hear from him in a moment when we come back to Detroit. The duel in Detroit shortened by weather and lightning in the area, and Carlos Munoz is going to get his first Verizon IndyCar Series win on a day best suited for, yes, ducks. How could I resist that line? Munoz has made his way to the alternate victory lane and is standing by with Rick DeBrule.
Yeah, in fact, I think we've got weather getting here into the building, the media center, where we're holding our little victory circle. Not a lot of applause here, but there was a lot of on the stand. How does it feel to get your first IndyCar victory?
You know, it feels okay. I wanted to win 100%, like with the whole laps. I think we were really comfortable. But, you know, I feel really happy for my crew, from the Andretti TV, Cince crew. I think, you know, they were hoping for this win. You know, racing is racing. This is what happened with the weather, with the great job in the strategy. You know, also it's a great result for the team, 1 and 2.
How hard was it running around at various points in time on slick tires when it was getting wet and wet tires when it was getting slick? How hard was it keeping that car on the track?
Yeah, we know before the race it will be a really hard race because of the weather. No, it was like showers, then dry showers. So, you know, I had the fuel to go laps longer, and I was lucky. You know, this time God was with me, and I had lucky. You know, I pitted 3 laps later than my teammate, and it started to rain a lot, so we decided to wear in wait, and I have a big lead in front of me. So, you know, I'm really happy, but I want to have my first win, like with 100, with done all the laps, but, you know, happy for my team.
Well, it goes in the record book as a win no matter what. We got Marco Andretti, who just walked in, who gave him a big hug. And let's talk about the fact you had to come in a couple laps earlier than you wanted, so obviously you couldn't get that victory, but you have to feel good about the strategy you called.
Yeah, no, I mean, it started very early in the race. You know, I think, you know, we're running 8th, and we have a bunch of strong guys in the front. That to me, just, you know, it seemed like a no-brainer as long as I can keep it off the fence, which we were able to do. But yeah, at the end, I really didn't want to come in. You know, we needed to get some fuel, and I knew whoever stayed out was going to beat me. But it was good fun, and glad for an Andretti Autosport 1-2. I'm trying to get Snapple a win so bad.
You came really close. And we got to grab Michael Andretti in here as well. This morning, if I had told you that your cars were going to finish 1-2 here in Detroit in race number 1, what would you have told me?
That we had a shot at it, especially with these conditions. I felt like, you know, in races like this, anything can happen. And I felt very confident in our guys that, you know, they would get the job done, and they did.
Let's talk about the strategy that Marco was calling and the one that had to go for Carlos as well, because this was not an easy race to win on strategy.
No, it was really difficult, and he's the one that made the call because everybody's, you know, when he was saying he wants to stay out, and everybody's no, he wanted to come in for slicks, and everybody's on the stand, no, and I'm like, screw it, we're staying out because he's the one that's making a call. I mean, we're coming in. He's the one that's making a call. He knows what it's like out there, and that's what set the tone for the rest of the race for the whole field. Everybody was watching him the rest of the time, and actually in the end, that's what really helped Carlos because I think he came in later, and then it put him about 4 laps ahead of Marco on fuel, which in the end that was the difference. But it was great that you know, they did it the way they did, and it came out right. And now we got to go and do it all over again tomorrow.
This has been a rough season for you guys. Coming to grips with the new aero package, the new Honda situation. How good does today feel?
Feels really good, really good. You know, I mean, it's been a really tough time, as you said, and you know, you start wondering, are we even going to get a win this year? And so it really feels good to get the monkey off our back for sure. So it, you know, we got a lot going. We're pushing really hard. Honda's pushing really hard, and I think we're going to just get more and more competitive as the year goes on.
All right, Carlos, you said you really want to win one without the rain. But still, you've got this one in the books. You have to think tonight, going to bed, can I get another one tomorrow?
Like Michael said, he started everything again tomorrow. You know, the conditions tomorrow is rain the whole day. I feel really comfortable with the rain. Always did. You know, I'm repair school, so you know, changed my mind and focus on tomorrow. Hopefully, we can have a great result for the team.
All right, Carlos Munoz getting the win here in Detroit race number 1. Marco Andretti second. The Michael Andretti 1 and 2 here. Not bad for this Andretti Honda team.
Rick, thanks, and it is a do-over day again tomorrow as they'll line it up and wave the green just after 3:30 Eastern Time here on ABC for the second half of our double dip here in Detroit. What will circumstances be tomorrow that decide who takes home the trophy from the Motor City? Back live in the aftermath of duel in Detroit race number 1 for the IndyCar Series, won by Carlos Munoz. Marco Andretti finished second in the rain-shortened affair, lightning-shortened affair, actually. And Simon Pagenaud gets the other place on the podium. He's standing by with Rick.
Yeah, congratulations to Simon Pagenaud. You've been wanting a good finish. This is getting close to that. Let's talk about the strategy and how you ended up in third, because obviously this was a dicey day today.
It was. I mean, you know, today was all about team effort, and I can't thank the 22 crew enough for a great strategy, a great call at any time, and it was very dicey. We never knew when the rain was going to come. We could only look at the radar, but on the racetrack it wasn't raining when they called me in, so we had a few communication exchange. We stayed out longer, and then they made the call at the perfect time, so we were able to jump to third and get a first podium at Team Penske. So I'm glad that we got some luck in the end.
Now let's talk about, there was a moment when Carlos Munoz passed you. What was it like on the track at that point, and how hard was it to hang on?
Then it was okay. It was just difficult for me to get the tires going on cold tires, and you know, Carlos was going for it, so didn't have much room for the two of us there. So I just gave up the position, thinking it was going to rain and that everything was going to happen later. So it was a smart race on my side today, you know, and you know, the result's actually quite good, so I'm pretty happy.
How hard was it running around on those slick tires as the track began to get wet, especially on the front side?
This is fun, actually, Rick. I really love these conditions, and I wanted to stay longer on track as the rain was coming down. This is, you know, these conditions is you can gain 2 seconds per lap sometimes compared to somebody else being on rain tires. So until it's really wet, you don't really get the effect, the good effect of the rain tires. So so it's all about being agile and adapting well to the situation. It's tricky but fun.
Was there just one line? Was there multiple lines? How were you able to hang on?
I was trying to find lines and experimenting. You know, it's when it gets wet like this, you want to cross the dry line as much as possible and put the power down on a very different line. So sometimes on the inside of the corner, that's where the grip can be, and that's where sometimes you have to run. So in the rain, you have to be curious. You have to experience things, and yeah, I mean, it was different in every corner. It was fun.
Now, Carlos is a young guy. He came in here saying, oh, he wanted his first win to be just a straight-out, all-out win. He didn't want to win it by strategy. You're a little older and wiser. How hard was it, and how much do you appreciate this third place today?
Well, I tell you, I don't care. I'm just going to take it. It's my first podium with Team Penske. I'm over the moon right now. You know, we haven't had much luck this year, so sometimes you may not be the best on that day, but if you have a little bit of luck, it goes your way, and that's what racing is all about. And, you know, in Indy, we had the best car, but we didn't win. So today is a great day. I'm really happy, and you know, I'm happy for him. He's been knocking at the door, and obviously it was a great drive from him today.
All right, Simon Pagenaud talking about luck, but then again, I think sometimes you make your own luck, and that's exactly what these three guys had to do today to get to that podium. Alan?
All right, Rick, thanks. So Pagenaud with the third place finish, leading powerful Team Penske, who have certainly been the class of the field in the IndyCar Series so far this year. Pretty good day for the captain at the race that his organization promotes, but just not the top step on the podium that he was hoping for.
On wet track conditions, a lot of the advantages that he has worked so hard for the past 6 months are just thrown out of the window. You have to start with a brand new piece of paper, and they were maybe a little bit unlucky on some of the decisions they took. But Simon Pagenaud, as always, made the most of what he had, and I agree totally with him. He did have what looked like to have the best car in Indy, and he didn't have a good result. So today was very important for him, Scott.
So look at what happened on the day today here in Detroit in this race that was scheduled for 70 laps. Weather coming and going and conditions changing, and we had quite a bit of mayhem.
Everybody being anxious, especially in the very first lap with Stefano Coletti coming in there and setting off this chain reaction, which took out Graham Rahal, as you see riding along with him now, driving into an already crashed Tony Kanaan.
So that was trouble, one of 8 different caution flags that we had in this one. And it came down to strategy. Guys that qualified at the back had the luxury of going off and doing something different.
But when you're in the back, you can make decisions like that. If you're in the front, as you often say, you can't go off on a crazy strategy, but he chose to get on slicks very early. And he had a bit of a stumble during that period where it looked like there was something that went wrong with the electronics, but he calmly reset something and the car started going again. And his dad kept telling him to come in the pits, and he kept on going and going and going and going until he was well in the lead, and he had to come in for fuel.
And the extra laps on the slick tires before changing to the reds is what made the difference for both Andretti and Carlos Munoz, who was able to run another 6 laps after Marco pitted here to go back onto the rain tires before he had to come in and take fuel and get back onto the wets.
And that extra few laps gave him the gap that he needed and the space that he got when he got back onto the race course before we ended up having the yellow flag, which then led to the red.
So Carlos Munoz, a first-time winner in the Verizon IndyCar Series, and Andretti Autosport 1-2. Last time they had a 1-2 team finish was the race at Barber Motorsports Park in 2014 when Ryan Hunter-Reay won and Marco Andretti finished in 2nd position.
A lot of guys not having some luck here today when you look through that list, and Sage Karam getting that drive-through penalty for having a little bit of a tic-tac-toe, as we call it, with Takuma Sato. So I'm going to look forward to that. Connor Daly finishing in 19th. He looked like he was headed towards maybe a top 6 finish before he ended up getting some damage in the back of his car.
Okay, I feel bad. We didn't get to see the kind of race to the finish we wanted to today here in Detroit. So how about we spend the last few minutes of our broadcast today seeing a race to the finish that was better than most any other last Sunday at Indianapolis. When you see these drivers dive all the way to the inside, they're protecting that inside lane, which is great, but the draft is effective enough that we've seen a lot of those outside passes like Montoya just made. You can only make one move. You can't move in reaction to someone else's, so you got to pick your lane and hope it works out.
And until the last lap, because that'll change coming out of 4, I assure you.
But the preferred pass right now, you're right, Alan, seems to be the outside lane.
Dixon was able to mix it up with the 2 Penske cars, then had to give a little ground in that 3 wides shuffle off to turn 1. Now he closes back in the draft. Side by side again for the race lead. Power. Wow.
That is so close.
Will Power, last year's series champion, said he's totally focused on winning this 500 this year. He checked the championship box off last fall. He's trying to get through this race. He knows he has a good car. He knows he has the ability. In the past, mistakes have taken him out of these races. Pit road speeding penalties and so on. He's gotten through the last pit stop. He's racing for the lead. He wants it desperately. 2nd place, Dixon on Montoya.
And that all happened back in 3 and 4 when Montoya tried to get low and take a run out of 4 on Will Power. He got too close, had to take his foot out of the throttle mid-turn, cost him straightaway speed.
Charlie Kimball hanging in 4th. Doesn't look like he has enough to get up there and mess with these front 3. But if he does, he hasn't shown it yet.
Looks like those changes that Power made to his car in that last pit stop are working for him.
6 laps to go right here. 6 to go after
this. The subtle setup by Montoya when he didn't have enough of a draft to make a pass attempt to make sure he stayed with those front 2. Kimball's wife, Liz, tries to battle the nerves. Kimball's closing in a little bit now on these front three.
Kimball is a teammate to Scott Dixon, so if he can get up there and get in the mix and help a little bit, but it looks like he just can't keep the speed up through the turns.
Montoya is lining up Dixon. Look at him move the steering wheel.
Willing his car to stay with these front two and try and win this race.
After this lap, Power will have 4 laps to go.
Four to go here. 4 to go.
It's the voice of Tim Cindric, the strategist for Will Power.
I don't know how Dixon's going to stop Montoya this time.
There's Emma Dixon. The outside move, Montoya on Dixon for second.
Clear.
That was a surprise clear from a spotter.
Yeah,
Holy
you made it.
smokes, you made it, yeah.
Laps to go after this one.
And that really cost Dixon a lot of ground and momentum. Here's Montoya with a full run on Will Power for the race lead.
We're together here.
He's cleared it.
I think he decided, Eddie, it's time to go.
Yeah, but I don't know if that's the right place to be in.
5.
Montoya was 30th.
Look at Dixon. He lost third place to Charlie Kimball. That moment cost Dixon third place and a shot at fighting these two for the win.
And Montoya's driving away.
5 miles is a lot of distance the way this draft has been working today, and here they come. The final 2 laps, 5 miles at Indianapolis. Juan Pablo Montoya leads, Will Power is second, Charlie Kimball third, Scott Dixon fourth. Next time is the white flag.
And Power is back in his toe. Montoya's trying to break the toe by going to the bottom part of the track and then back up to the high part.
And right now it will be a Penske win unless these two guys take themselves out. And then who's behind you? 2 Ganassi cars.
The white flag is waiting at the yard of bricks. And we enter the final lap of the Indianapolis 500. Kimball has caught up to Power. 1 lap to go. Who's going to win it? Power slipped in turn 2. Justin Wilson just came off the pit lane. He and Munoz had to stop for fuel. Final 2 corners for Montoya. He was all the way back in 30th place after an opening laps crash. Here they come to the checkered flag. And the winner of the Indianapolis 500 is Juan Pablo Montoya.
Great job, Juan. Guys, you're awesome. Unbelievable.
How much fun was that? Seen a lot of auto races in my career, and I can't remember one, if few, that were as intense, as riveting, as heart-pounding and exciting to be part of as last Sunday's Indianapolis 500.
I think it's just as exciting watching it now as it was last week. I've watched this race back a couple of times this week before we got here. You know something? It's going to be one that goes in the history books. It was great.
I'm still nervous. Every time I see that, I keep thinking, there's no way he's going to make it around. That was probably the best Indy 500 I have ever seen.
For all of the conversation going into the race, the crashes during the couple of weeks of practice and so on, the rule changes that had to be made on qualification day and so forth, for the race to turn out that way and be as exciting as it was, and every bit of what we could have asked for, possibly, out of an Indianapolis 500. It was a good moment for the IndyCar series and for the drivers and teams.
And I think it shows the leadership of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway and also the IndyCar series that when something's not correct, they've always been a leader in safety. And they went ahead and made some changes to the cars very quickly, and the cars were safe to drive. We saw it with Tony Kanaan going backwards at a high rate of speed. The car did not get in the air. You know, Indianapolis has always been about safety innovation. You know, when you think about the rear view mirror, the yellow light system that's on racetracks, all these things we have, the safer barrier that's against the wall now that even NASCAR tracks are using, it's always been a leader in the forefront of safety.
And some changes are coming before the next oval track race next week at Texas Motor Speedway as well. We can detail that tomorrow when we come to you for Doolin Detroit race number 2. Today in race number 1, weather, chaos, havoc, mayhem, and a first-time winner in the IndyCar series.
We will always remember that Carlos Munoz won in the wet in Detroit, going away from everybody, including his Colombian hero, Juan Pablo Montoya. That's a great person to beat in the wet on a track like this.
So Honda is 1 and 2 today. Go back and we start all again tomorrow. And as we see the victory celebration going on here tonight, these guys will take a much-needed rest to get ready for the battle again tomorrow.
Tomorrow we're on the air here on ABC at 3:30 Eastern Time from this very spot for Indy Doolin Detroit race number 2. Weather again threatening. The conditions could be just as interesting and chaotic as today's were. Should be quite the day. That's tomorrow here on ABC at 3:30 Eastern Time. And up next, ABC World News or your local news, except on the West Coast, of course. So Carlos Munoz comes out on top of a rain-shortened affair in the Motor City and gets his first ever Verizon IndyCar Series win. He's the winner of race number 1 in Detroit. His car hiccuped in turn 4. He's lost the lead.